What is up, gamers? It's your boy, and I wanted to do a tier list going into Marvel Rivals launch. Now that we've kind of seen the newer characters, I wanted to kind of make something that maybe people who haven't got to play in the previous playtests with the beta or the closed alpha, kind of give them an idea of what to expect going into the game. A lot of people obviously compare it to Overwatch. Obviously, there are a lot of comparisons to be able to make to Overwatch. And as a former top 500 tank player of Overwatch 1, yeah, the game has a lot of similarities, but I think it's a whole new game, and I think people are not fully understanding that. I mean, I see so many people trying to make comparisons, and I guess the same thing happened with Overwatch when it came out. A lot of people try to compare it to Valve's Team Fortress, but I mean, I again, just completely different games, completely different flow. Marvel Rivals a lot more, in my opinion, a lot more arcadey. It's a little bit more faster pace. People kind of die and respawn a little bit faster. The game itself is a little bit faster. It feels like, again, that's kind of where the arcadey feel is coming into play. I think there's still a lot of competitive value there, though. I still think the game is still highly competitive. There's definitely a lot of skill expression, especially with some of these heroes. But it's gonna be interesting to kind of see how everything evolves. My biggest issue with anything hero based, obviously, is over time power creep. This overall bloat. The developers start to forget about certain characters that start to fall off a little bit, or maybe leaves certain ones a little bit OP for a while. But I really think this set of devs have done a really good job listening to the community, make changes where they need to be made. Balance is always going to be an issue in a game like this, but I'm hoping that longevity wise, this game has a lot of potential. It is free to play. You can see the countdown timer right there under me. We're getting closer and closer to release, so I'm super excited. We'll be streaming it day one. So keep an eye out. You can follow me on Twitch, or you can subscribe to this YouTube channel because we're definitely be making a lot of videos. So without further ado, I don't want to keep on rambling. We're gonna kind of get into this. This is kind of what you should expect. I've been playing the game really since before the closed alpha. There was an NDA playtest I was involved in that was in person. Then there was a closed alpha, closed beta. I was invited to the GamesCon invite that I was able to play that week as well. Unfortunately, wasn't able to play just this last week. Didn't get an invite to that, so I haven't really been able to try the newer characters. I didn't even actually know that, before they came out. I had no idea that they were even gonna be a part of the cast. So it's been cool to see kind of the newer stuff. So I'm not gonna make as many guesses on kind of how those feel. And obviously, the Gamescom build versus like the latest China beta that existed, or the current version that's out now. Obviously, damage value and all that, values are a little bit different between a lot of these characters. So, you know, don't take this list completely to heart. This is more of like an open-ended discussion. Let me know what you think in the comments of kind of if you were able to play, during any of these play tests, what you think people kind of land, or maybe if I put something too high or too low, let me know what you think. Personally, I'm kind of basing this list off of pro play versus casual play versus rank play, kind of where, kind of trying to make a middle ground between all those. I know it's not necessarily possible to do all that, but I think that's kind of what mainly most people will experience this game. Obviously, will probably be ranked for most people. So, obviously, ranked play versus actual like pro competitive play, even in Overwatch, is completely different, right? Like some characters are better in actual like team aspect where it's everybody's in comms, everybody's communicating, everybody's doing what they need to do versus just like rank play where some people may have mics, some people may be communicating, some people may not be communicating. So you can almost quote unquote pub stomp, So that's gonna play a factor in how I'm, listing some of these characters. Some characters will list higher or lower because of that. So just keep that in mind as well as I'm placing them. But we'll start off with Spider-Man, and I have Spider-Man tier here because Spider-Man, in my opinion, also alongside Black Panther, I think both these characters play similar roles. I think they both have similar play styles. I think both of them have similar skill expressions. So what I mean by that is you're gonna have people who select these characters and just absolutely do nothing. When they select these characters, they just have no idea what they're doing. They're wasting their time and your time. Especially when we get into these ranked matches. They just are kind of running around like with a headless chicken, and they're just feeding into their back line, not really doing anything. These characters, really, their kits are either high impact or low impact when it comes to the game and kind of how it flows. I think they're both viable on either like a pay, like I forget again what Marvel Rivals specifically calls a convoy. I think is what it's called, aka payload. Um, but on convoy or again, I forget the specific term that they use, but I'm just gonna say King of the Hill. Um, I think they're both viable on either of those. From the new maps, I don't think those have any changes there. I obviously certain maps I think Spider-Man does a little bit better on, depending on how the map is structured. I mean, Spider-Man is such a fast character that obviously a little bit more maps that are a little bit more open, a little bit more easy to traverse quicker. Spider-Man's going to do very well on. I mean, they're both get into the back line, get a pick, get out, reset, get into the back line, get a pick, get out, reset. These are like basically the tracer. Again, you want to make comparisons like Overwatch, which I'm not going to do that often because I don't want to do that. But if you had to make a comparison with Overwatch, these are like almost like the tracer characters in the game where they're always in the back line trying to get a pick, trying to reset, or Genji, characters like that. But I feel like they deserve their own tier almost where, again, it's going to be either one or the other. It's going to be either the player is very well at playing those heroes and they're going to have a really high impact in the game, or the person playing them is going to either be learning them or just not good with them, and they're going to have a very low impact on the game. And these aren't characters where you can just pick up, play, and just instantly do really well with. They don't have simplistic kits, in my opinion. I think these are characters that, again, you're either going to feed on or you're going to pop off on, and there's really no middle ground between these characters. They're either going to have a lot of value for the team or they're not going to have a lot of value at all. And there's really nothing in their kit that kind of carries you in the game, if that makes sense. And I'll kind of get into that as we talk about the other characters. But really, there's just nothing to do with these characters where you can just select them and just, maybe you're not like the best player, but because of the character's kit, it helps you out a little bit, if that makes sense. But these characters are really all or nothing. You're either going to be good with them, or you're going to be bad with them, or you're going to be learning with them and starting to get better with them. But it's going to be rough. These are the characters that if you play in ranked and you're doing bad with, your team's probably going to start yelling at you. So there'll be a lot of heated discussion when it comes to stuff like that. Getting into Adam, I still think Adam is an S tier pick. I think anything with a res mechanic is always going to be extremely valuable. Adam Warlock, at least just from watching playtest today with Shroud and yesterday with Necros and Flats, it doesn't look like anything's really changed with him. He just still seems like he does a lot of really solid damage. Obviously, mass res is huge. I mean, his kit in general was pretty solid. A lot of burst healing. I still think healers in general are the best class in Marvel Rivals. I think they have the most, just all around impact in terms of kits for the game itself. So if you want to really feel like you're having a high impact in the game, I feel like picking healer would be the role that you would want to pick. Um, but or just have the most challenge, I think, because man, the healers in this game just they do so much and they're so important that I just think it's I mean, obviously usually healer is the most important role in any team based game, but I think Marvel Rivals, the healers in this game just have such a high impact on how the game is. Adam Warlock, I mean, yeah, I think that's where he is. Doctor Strange now. I don't know why I said Adam Warlock. I think Doctor Strange is your what I want to use. Doctor Strange is your all around like solid. I don't want to necessarily say most balanced, but he's just gonna be a solid tank. I think throughout the history, like throughout the lifespan of this game, unless some drastic changes happen, I just think Doctor Strange will consistently be consistent. If that makes sense, I think his kid is really strong. I mean, obviously, depending on how they play with his shield values or tweak different things, I think that'll have an impact on how he does as a character. But you have a teleport, which is really useful for the King of the Hill maps, where you can instantly get the point. It is on an extremely long cooldown. I almost want to say almost unforgiving cooldown. If you accidentally click the button and don't use it, it still goes on cooldown. I mean, I think it's at like 130 seconds now. Don't quote me on the exact numbers, but I know it's long, and so it can be a little bit unforgiving with teleport if you don't get a lot of value out of it. But the same caveat to that is you can get a lot of value out of the teleport. You can do a lot of different things. I'm sure you've already seen a lot of clips where people are using teleporter on people's spawns. They jump through it, they fall off the map. There's going to be a lot of different combos as we see with more and more characters releasing. The different types of combos you'll be able to do with TPing your team. I just think Doctor Strange in general will have a lot of impact in the game. Going into this release, he looks like he's again in a pretty solid spot. I don't know if he necessarily deserves the A+. Maybe he's a little bit more A. Um, I'm gonna knock him down to A. Maybe he's not A+. I think he's just all around in a solid position. Like if you want to tank in Marvel Rivals and you kind of want to get a full feel for how the flow of the game is, I think you can't go wrong picking Doctor Strange. I think you can all around do a pretty decent job. You're gonna block a lot of things. You're gonna block a lot of ults in the game. Your ult in general is like a huge CC. One thing I did notice from watching a gameplay, it seems like they did buff his damage a little bit again, because his damage was a little bit weaker last time I played him during the last playtest I was involved with, where again he's kind of gone back and forth, where there's been instances where you'll ult and then you're only really able to kill like one person off your ult, but now just recently it kind of seems like after he ults he's able to kill almost everybody that he ults, which is a huge impact, because again his ult has such a huge impact on the game. If you hit all members of their team, they're all gonna die, and that's a pretty again just a really high impact ult. It's almost like a Rhine Shatter. Again, we're making comparisons to Overwatch, but it's like it's a hard CC to everybody on the team. You're really gonna get a lot of value. You can combo with a lot of different ults. You can stop a bunch of different ults depending. Again, depending on how they balance his shield, which is really gonna depend. I think if it puts him in meta or not. That's really what it's gonna come down to, is how beneficial his shield is. I think that's kind of where he is. If I don't know if I knew the exact values right now on his shield, that would probably move him up or down a tier. But I think him being at solid A is something I can live with. On the other hand, Groot, I feel like has kind of fallen off a little bit since these newer tanks have kind of been released. Groot was really, 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 really strong. He was easily like an S tier tank back in like closed alpha or closed beta, I think it was. Now he's kind of come down a little bit. He doesn't do nearly as much damage. His ultimate really is more of a combo ult. His combo with like Namor is like a S plus combo. Um, and there's really no way to block it unless somehow you deflect his ult or something, or somebody baits it, and you don't get value that way. But if you group the whole like the whole enemy team together, and you have a smart Namor and he pops his ult at the same time, like if you have communication there, you're gonna get extreme value, and that can easily put him. Like I think team play wise, Groot probably is more like a higher A tier, but I think for like rank play or casual play, I think Groot will struggle a little bit in terms of communication, because I really think Groot is just all about comboing with your team, and if you're not, and his team ups with Jeff or Rocket Raccoon, like they're not really anything groundbreaking, and that's kind of what again kind of keeps him at a B tier for now, at least for me. Um, but I guess we'll see as the game comes out and kind of where we're all landing with different characters. I don't know. I mean, he might be a little bit higher. He might even be around the same wavelength as Strange, but currently his walls aren't that impactful. His ult is more of a grouping ult. Again, communication is really where his strong suit is going to be. Um, and I feel like B is probably where I feel comfortable keeping him for now. Hela, I'm gonna put Hela probably at an A plus. Hela was dominant. When she was one of the newer characters that come out, I think that we're gonna probably see that as a trend. Usually see that as a trend with newer characters that come out to hero based shooters or hero based games in general. Usually when the character first comes out, they're super overpowered, and then they kind of lose that power, or again power creep comes in and maybe they get replaced by some other, or they get knocked down a few pegs. Hella still in general has a really strong crit. I mean, a really strong kit, and I mean she's just gonna fit well into the game in terms of most team comps. Her team up abilities are pretty dang strong. Ability to basically res, your counterpart. She can, she teams up with Loki. She teams up with Thor. I don't know if there's anybody I'm missing right now off the top of my head, but the ability that you just get to be rezzed, if you get a pick, is huge, and especially we're talking about Thor, who, and we'll get into, but is a higher on the tanking list. Like the ability that you can just free res something like that is pretty insane to me. I think that's where she gets a lot of value, as her ult is still pretty decent, high impact ult. I mean, it's nerfed a little bit than what it used to be, but again, her headshot damage is insane. Her kit in general is pretty good. Like if you have a person who knows how to aim, I think Hela is really solid, and I don't think you can really go wrong with. Next, Hulk. So as much as I want to put Hulk here, I mean, I've been a Hulk enjoyer since day one. Hulk was the very first character I played. Hulk is my favorite superhero. I mean, I'm obviously biased when it comes to Hulk. And I just, in general, Hulk is Hulk, and I love him. But again, if I'm looking at an overall picture, I think Hulk probably is more A tier. Some people may think less than that. They think maybe he's like a B or a C, because last couple playtests, people really didn't see a lot of value from Hulk. But in general, I think people really underestimate how effective he can really be. His main thing really is team ups. I mean, the Gamma team up with Strange, or the Gamma power up that he gives Iron Man, like the DPS increase on both these characters if there's a Hulk on the team is just actually pretty insane, and you get a lot of value out of it. Um, and Ultimate Hulk, you're going in with a ton of HP. You can be a really big menace to the back line. Depending on where his damage values are nowadays, you know, he used to be able to solo a lot of DPS. I don't know what it looks like now. If they gave Hulk a little bit of mobility, which is something that I wanted to see with Hulk, in terms of his jump, you know, just a little bit more responsive. And it only really makes sense to people who has played the game so far. But Hulk's jump is on like almost like a weird like cooldown, and it's not as fluid as you would think it would be. And I feel like that's kind of where a lot of his power is left on, because he can just kind of have a harder time at points closing the gap. And you have like a projectile stun that if you hit, you know, it kind of stuns the enemy, but they don't take damage from that. You know, and it's like kind of like a weird stasis thing where like they can't damage you, you can't damage them. You know, a lot of time people have time to turn around and help whoever's maybe been focused by it. It's useful to like you know, hit on like flying characters because it'll bring them straight down to the ground. But again, I still feel like there's some changes that Hulk may need. Uh, but at the same time, like if we see those changes, it might make him a little bit too broken. So Hulk is gonna be one of those things where we just have to keep an eye out on. Because I think he's gonna float between being really, really OP or, you know, kind of just average, depending on the. I think as more of a team play aspect, I think he has a little bit more value, but he can also get focused down pretty quick, and he can get burst. And speaking of Banner's pistol back in previous playtests was a lot different, and actually was just did a lot of damage, overall damage, especially if you hit headshots. And it was more of like a hit scan. Now it's more like a projectile. I don't know how it is now with, you know, the previous changes. I don't know if they've reverted it back where it may be. But you used to actually get a lot of value just out of playing Banner and then transforming into Hulk when you needed to, if you were like on like a defense of convoy or something. But now it's almost like you just have to be in Hulk form right away, and when you're not in Hulk form, you're at a huge, you know, disadvantage to your team, which is probably what you want it to be in terms of balancing. But you know, right? If it's still like it was last playtest, Banner is just, I mean, he's like a, you know, he's just useless. He's not a threat to anybody. But if it was like Banner, maybe a couple playtests before that, then he actually is kind of threatening, even though he's not Hulk form, because his pistol can do a lot of damage, and it can do a lot of damage really quickly, especially hit headshots. So, I'm curious to see kind of what he's gonna feel like when the game comes out, where they've kind of put him at right now. I think we'll probably see him changed in the future, depending on where he's gonna fall, but I guess time will tell. And that being said, I think Iron Man is probably at a solid A. Again, a lot of his team up is going to come from whether or not there's a Hulk on the team. I think if there's a Hulk on the team, I think he can do a lot of crazy damage. His ultimate is insane. I mean, if the enemy doesn't see it coming, I mean, it is just a wipe type of ultimate. You can just completely change the tide of the battle. I mean, his huge like pulse cannon is just crazy, and I think we're gonna see a lot of clips. We're gonna see a lot of potential play with that. I mean, I think just in terms of damage, his projectile damage is just solid. I think the hit scan characters might give him a run for his money, obviously, but I think that's kind of the point. You know, he does struggle against matchups like Namor. He's going to struggle against matchups with Punisher. He's going to struggle with matches with Star-Lord. But I think Hawkeye's going to be something he's going to have to worry about. Black Widow being into the game now. You know, Bucky or Winter Soldier, you know. I think he maybe might be a little bit lower on the list because of those characters. And actually, now that I think about it, I'll probably put him with Groot. I think B is probably a little bit more reasonable because of that. I just think that some of those characters I just named off are going to be a little bit too dominant, and I feel like he's going to have a harder time against them because of that. Just from his current way that he is. But I still think there's a lot of potential there. So again, B rating is more like a grain of salt. I think he could be potentially A, but I think some of these other characters I've just named off are maybe a little bit too strong, and he's gonna struggle with. Jeff, I think from what I've seen, they changed his healing from the last playtest I was involved with into the Chinese beta, and Jeff already had a lot of strong burst healing, but now I think Jeff is just going to be a really really strong healer in general. I think that the team up with Luna Snow is really strong. His ultimate, it can be one of the weaker points. It's actually not always is impactful depending on the map, and I think Jeff might be more of a map based pick because of that. I mean, if there's a lot of potential for environment kill or easy environment kill, I think Jeff is going to have a lot of high impact. I think you'll see Jeff a lot more on like King of the Hill maps. But I still think he's an S tier support going into this game release. Jeff's obviously a cute ass character, so I'm not complaining when it comes to that. His biggest issue was like survivability. His even with like the hitbox and all that, getting receiving less damage, he was still getting melted very very quickly, which is like Jeff's biggest issue. But I think going into from what I've seen, again, could be definitely wrong with this. I haven't had any hands-on play time with it yet, but from what I've seen, I think Jeff is going to be a very strong contender right now for supports, and I think that puts Loki at a just a solid A. Loki has like the invulnerability with being able to basically dupe two other clones, and then you have all three clones drop that invulnerability. And then there's like that threshold. I think Loki, in terms of damage, can still do a lot of crazy damage for support. Loki's ultimate is pretty much insane depending on what the enemy team is playing. I mean, being able to dupe any ultimate from any character in the game is pretty insane. Especially if you have like a Punisher or they have a Punisher. Punisher's ultimate is just top tier, and you're gonna hear me talk about Punisher a lot because again, Punisher is just such a dominant character in my opinion. But I mean, if you have a Punisher and you have a Loki, and you pop Punisher ult, and then you pop Loki ult to copy Punisher ult, and then you get another Punisher ult, these are ults that are just completely changing the tide of the fight, and there's just not much you can do about that if you're getting basically double Punisher ulted. If you have nothing that you're able to do to stop it, it's just super crazy strong, man. So I think that keeps Loki at a pretty solid spot with Hela. Again, the team up there, the synergy there. I think Loki has just I don't think he's crazy as he was, but definitely really solid. And that going into that, we'll talk about Luna. Luna is just I think Luna's just been strong for a while. Her ult's really really good. She's got a hard CC. She can stop a lot of people's ults. She's decent escapability. She gets back to fights really really quickly if she dies with her like passive, with her little ice skating. She can get back to the fight really really quick. If you can aim, you'll be good with Luna. Like that's the biggest factor. Again, skill difference there. I think Luna's just a top tier support. I think she's got a lot of high impact in the game. And that will put us at Magik, who I think Magik is not as good. I mean, we saw the nerf to her ultimate, but I think she still could be in a pretty good spot. I almost want to put it in the Spider-Man tier of things where you're either going to see really good or really bad. I think you could be a little bit less skilled as a player and still do well with Magik, though. I feel like her kit is still pretty strong. The life still there is really, really strong. Um, you'll still kind of have to know what you're doing with combos, but I feel like people can pick up on her maybe a little bit quicker than the other two. I think she has a little bit more of a easier skill gap, I guess, if that makes sense. With her character's kit. Um, I think she's got potential. I don't think she's super crazy, but I don't think she's bad by any means. And that'll probably put Magneto at a from there. Magneto is going to be really interesting because Magneto's power is super crazy, but I know it was nerfed from the last couple playtests, and I don't know where Magneto sits at this point. His ult can eat other ults. If you don't know it, when he ults, his ult eats all like projectiles that are coming in. So let's say you have a Punisher who ults, you can Magneto ult and you'll eat about half of Punisher's ult. I mean, Punisher's ult lasts longer than Magneto's, so it's not a direct counter there. You can kind of wait it out and then kill Magneto afterwards. I don't. From what I've seen, they really haven't changed his ult in terms of, the way it fires and kind of how fast you can charge it up. I still think Magneto's, in terms of actually getting kills with Magneto's ult, is not any easier from what I've seen. I think his ult value really comes into the fact of just it basically eats other people's damage. It's more of like a counter ult at this stage of the game more than it is like it's more like a defensive ult more than it is an offensive ult. Um, but his bubble, being able to bubble people, like that's pretty huge. You have a lot of dive characters in this game. Being able to basically just send out a bubble for them as they go in is going to be really impactful. Um, Again, depending on how they balance his team up with Scarlet Witch. I mean, his swords at one point was like the most insane amount of damage in the game, and he was able just to like one shot squishies. I don't think it's that insane anymore, but again, values are gonna determine that. He could easily be higher on this list until I actually see what his values are. I don't know. I think maybe we can revisit this tier list like a week or two after game releases, after I've had time to actually kind of see where the values on things are now. But I think Magneto is just going to be a solid tank pick. Going into release, his shield really isn't that crazy. That's obviously his weakest part. But the ability to bubble people, the ability to kind of be a little bit more defensive with his ult. I still think he'll have some impact. He does a decent amount of damage on his own. I think he'll be a decent pick. I don't think he's like the tank you want to pick if you're only going to have one tank on your team, but I think he's like a good off tank pick, and I think you get a lot of value with him. Mantis is going right back to S tier. She's kind of bounced. I don't know what it is now, but you used to be able to stack her damage buff on somebody, where you could just stack damage. Like she has that ability where you'll send out your damage buffs on characters. You used to be able to stack it. I don't know if you can do that now or not. Again, it's gonna be one of those things I have to wait and see when the game actually comes out. But even after that, hard CC, ability that's not hard to hit at all. She's overall does a lot of healing. Ultimate's really good. She can actually do surprisingly a lot of damage as well. Which when I got to mess around with her last playtest, I think I didn't realize before that, but when I was like really messing around with her class and her abilities, Mantis does a decent amount of damage as well. And I think she's just a solid pick. I think Luna and Mantis you'll probably see a lot on teams. I think either one of these you could basically play every single map, every single game mode Can't really go wrong with them. I think just a solid support in general. And I think that'll put us with Namor at a. I want to say Namor's A plus. Namor is a little bit harder to play. I think with team ups, he's like with Luna being really popular. I think a lot of people underestimate Namor. I don't see a lot of people picking him as much. He does a lot of damage. He's got a high impact ult if you can combo it. Um, I mean, him alone, if comboed with Groot, makes me like put Groot to like an A tier right off the bat, just off of their combo. Um, I mean, I think Namor does a lot of crazy damage to a lot of these flying characters. Like, for instance, Iron Man or his combos with like his anti Spider Man, with the turrets, kind of helping the supports in the back line. Spider Man can't really dive in as easy, or even Black Panther not being able to dive in as easy. I think really really good Namor players probably push him all the way to S for me. But I think as a general community base, I think A plus is probably a good position for him. I think Namor just does a lot of solid damage, and the fact that he can just basically go into a invulnerability state for I think it's like 5 seconds on one of his abilities, buys him time if he needs to wait for a healer or just pull attention because a flanker is trying to burst him down really quick. He can try to just make them kind of sit there for a second. He can't really objective stall because Marvel. I mean, I don't know if they changed it, but at least the last playtest I was in, like if you're like in like a an ability that kind of takes you from the game, so to speak, you can't really objective stall, so you can't go into his like water bubble shield and just sit there and like stall an objective. I don't know if they've changed that or not, but I don't think they did. So he doesn't really have that ability. If they give him that ability where he can stall objectives, he could. I mean, that would probably put him even higher on the list right off the bat. But I think the more it's just a solid pick if you're looking for just solid DPS. Obviously, if you can hit your shots with his spears, I think he just does solid output. I think he can just kind of have an answer to a lot of the flankers or if there's like the flying characters that are just flying around the map, they kind of have to keep an eye out on him. So Penny Parker, so they kind of reworked her kid, I guess. Penny honestly has trending to be the worst character in the game at certain points. I don't know where I would put her now, honestly. I would want to see kind of. I haven't really seen a lot of gameplay. Her ult is really weird. Her landmines do a crazy amount of damage, and that's really where her value is. She has a stun that can stop a lot of ults in the game, which is also really crazy. But her movement's kind of clunky. Her ult was kind of clunky. Um, her mines in general are kind of a gimmick. It's like as long as you focus her mines, she basically loses all value at that point. But if you don't focus the mines and you just let them just build up and people aren't destroying the little ability that actually shoots mines out every couple of seconds, that it makes her a lot of damage overall. But she was looking better in other playtests. Honestly, I don't really feel comfortable putting her in any tier. I'm just gonna say keep an eye out on Penny. I don't know where Penny's gonna fall. Um, he still might be clunky. I mean, I feel like the character itself needed a complete rework in terms of how she flows and how she fits into the game. Uh, I think the developers are pretty open with that, so I think we might see more changes with Penny in the coming weeks. But I'm just gonna say keep an eye out on Penny. I don't really know where she fits in the game at this point. She's just kind of weird. She's just a really weird tank, and she's definitely an off tank. She's definitely not like that solo tank or a traditional tank by any means. It's just kind of weird how she fits into the game, and I would say keep an eye out on Penny. Punisher, I still think is an S tier character. I mean, Punisher just does crazy amounts of things. Solid damage, movement, getting back into the fight with the zip lines, really solid. Ultimate is godsend. I mean, unless they just completely nerf the damage Punisher has, I think Punisher is going to be just a solid pick overall. I think he deals with every situation solid. He does a lot of damage to tanks. He does a lot of damage to DPS. He's always a consistent threat. He's really not that hard to play. He's just all about positioning with Punisher. If the person positions poorly, they're not going to be a good Punisher. If they know how to position, then they're going to be a great Punisher. Shotgun is insane. Not enough people use Punisher Shotgun. So if you're never played Marvel Rivals, or maybe you played Marvel Rivals and you haven't played a lot of Punisher, or maybe if you did play a lot of Punisher, 90% of your time on Punisher should be Shotgun. Unless they've changed something in terms of values with Shotgun. Shotgun is what you should be using with Punisher about 90% of the time. It's just insane. It stops Spider-Man in the tracks, stops any flanker in their tracks. It just does a crazy amount of damage, and I think we'll see Punisher on the top still. I just think Punisher is too good. I think his kit is too strong. His turret is kind of gimmicky. Definitely one of the weakest parts of his kit. But again, Shotgun and Ultimate easily put Punisher into the top tier for me. Again, unless they have nerfed numbers that I'm not aware of. And that leads us into Rocket. I think Rocket has kind of fallen from being a top tier support. Obviously, he has that res mechanic. It's a little bit more gimmicky. A lot of people I've played with still didn't understand how it worked. The armor thing that he gives people really isn't all that useful, aside from like the very beginning of the game where you can throw it down and people can kind of stock up on it. But I still think you'll see a lot of. I mean, I'll probably put him A+ still. Actually, him with Punisher, the team up there is insane. The ability to throw down, like I would just call it an assault pack. I don't know the exact terminology, but the ability to basically just give Punisher infinite ammo for that time being, and a time period, and basically you have an auto shotty that is infinite ammo is insane. Again, Shotgun is just crazy good. So I think that easily puts Rocket at an A+. There's no question there. Scarlet Witch, Ultimate's still really slow, pretty predictable. I think we'll do well at the beginning of release because a lot of people, again, haven't played the game. So I think you'll be able to catch a lot of people off guard with somebody like Scarlet. She's definitely one of the easier DPS just to pick up. Obviously you're not really aiming very much with her. It's like again, we're going back to Overwatch comparisons, but it's like an Overwatch where you're kind of grasping onto people. There's really no aiming mechanic there. She does have some ability, right, where she does aim some things. Her stun is super annoying. I think we just put her at an A because, again, we don't know what the team up now looks like with her and Magneto. If they make it so Magneto swords are insane, then you'll probably see a lot more Scarlet again. I think she still has a lot of good potential. Her ultimate is like a team wiping ult, especially if she goes in, Magneto bubbles her. She can really just one shot the entire team. So she's got a lot of potential there. I feel comfortable keeping her at about an A though, because again, outside of that, if you're not really utilizing if you're not playing Magneto and you're not playing Scarlet together, then it's kind of like, what are you doing? It's kind of what it feels like to me. I don't think she's as good as some of the other DPS at this point in terms of overall impact on the game. That being said, I think Star-Lord is just a really solid DPS. His ult is really good. I think he does really good damage. in general, he can kind of flank, he can kind of frontline, he can kind of do a lot of different things. Um, he's just decent, decent overall pick. I think he's almost kind of there with Punisher. Whereas he can be either really good, really bad in certain situations. That's why he's probably not all the way up at S for me. Because he doesn't really have like that long range potential. You gonna have to get a little bit closer. His damage fall off is kind of big, but you can close the gap, or if he goes unnoticed, he can do a lot of crazy damage, and his impact, his ultimate is pretty high impact. Auto aim, instant melt people. It's like a Soldier 76 ultimate. But you can fly around. It's overall pretty solid. Storm is one of those characters where, again, damage value is gonna have an impact. Her ult is really insane. You have a decent amount of time to react to it, but even when you know it's coming, it really feels like there's not much you can do about it right now. And I feel like there's really no solid way to counter her ult at this stage of the game. And I think that alone puts her at a pretty solid spot. I'm almost tempted to say she's A plus. She very well might be, especially team up with Thor. Last couple playtests I played in, the team up between her and Thor was really really strong. But I think her and Thor kind of sit at about an A for me. Thor's kit is really weird, but Thor does a lot of damage. I mean, there's really not much to say. I think it's really like I feel comfortable keeping him at about an A, maybe even A plus. I'll just keep him at an A for now because again, I don't know where the damage values are. And I think they both are kind of similar to Scarlet and Magneto, where their team up is really really strong. But the damage values and how the numbers look really kind of impact on how good or bad they're really going to be in the game. And then that puts Venom for me probably at about an A plus. Venom, you used to be S tier. I believe they've nerfed the amount of overshield he gets when he pops that ability. Maybe I could be wrong. If I am wrong, that probably puts him at around S tier. Venom doesn't do crazy amount of damage. He just has a really crazy amount of survivability. And he's just really annoying. His ultimate isn't really that insane. None of his abilities are really that insane. He's just really annoying. Does a decent amount of DPS. And just kind of takes a lot of focus from the enemy team. He's basically a better Hulk, or at least he was a better Hulk in the previous playtest I had with him. I don't know where he sits now. Again, values on this character are going to depend on kind of where he sits. He's probably the highest tank. I feel like the highest tier tank I feel comfortable putting at this spot. I think right now Marvel Rivals tanks are on a little bit of the weaker side. It's definitely mainly a DPS support focused game at the current game state. The tanks are kind of just there to support. They don't really have a crazy amount of high impact. But we'll see. We'll kind of see how the game develops. But for now, I feel like Venom is probably about an A plus. I don't like putting him higher than Hulk and and everything, but I think overall, I think Venom probably is about an A plus. I really don't know where I want to put Captain America with that. I think, from what I've seen, kind of similar to Venom. Values have changed a lot since the last playtest I had with him. Captain America's mobility is pretty dang strong. His ult is changed slightly. I know the voice line changed. I don't know if the other values changed with it. The whole being able to deflect ultimates is kind of cool, but I don't know how much value that's really going to be in like an actual game state. I mean, it'll definitely create some cool clips, but I mean, I think he's just kind of gonna be one of those tanks that kind of just mainly is gonna get a lot of value from distraction, mainly more than anything else. I don't. Well, I don't know. Again, it's a little bit too early to say where he's gonna be placed. It just really depends on how much damage he's putting out and what that feels like. So he could go either way. He could go higher on the list, lower on the list, but I think A plus is probably where I'm gonna keep him now. I think Winter Soldier is gonna be an S tier. I think he's. I think with the recent changes on like the damage shot that he gets when he grapples people, his threshold of his ultimate for like execute, and then being able to combo it off and keep on popping it off as long as you get a kill. His pistol damage was solid. Um, I mean, I think overall he just is a really really good DPS going into this game. I think he's gonna be top tier. It just does a lot of damage. Has a really good ult. Has a really good CC with like the grapple arm as long as you can hit it. I think he'll be really good at stopping flankers. He kind of does a lot with what Punisher does, I think. And now we're kind of in like the newer characters, and I'm honestly gonna. I don't have opinion on Moon Knight. I don't have opinion on her. I don't have opinion on Hawkeye, Wolverine. I don't have an opinion on Black Widow, Cloak and Dagger. Honestly, I'm gonna keep these. I think these are potentially gonna be somebody characters we want to keep an eye out on. I think they can be like very very strong S tier. Um, that being said, I think Iron Fist is S, and we'll get into Squirrel Girl, I guess, but uh, I'll just put her where I was gonna put her. Iron Fist, from what I've seen, I mean, we watched Necros play him. Necros is Necros, obviously a top tier player, so he's gonna probably make the character look better than he might actually perform. But I think Iron Fist Kid is just really freaking solid, man. And it's kind of just like that one trick pony where he doesn't really seem like he does that bad against most things. Um, Maybe a little bit lower on the list than I'm originally putting him. Mainly because of like the skill difference there. You're either gonna have players that are really good or really bad with him. But I don't know, man. From what I've seen, I think Iron Fist just looks really freaking strong. This for me, this feels like maybe one of the more controversial picks on the entire tier list. But I honestly feel like he's just gonna be S tier. And that being said, I think Squirrel Girl is just gonna be a solid DPS character. And I don't have any problem putting her at about an A plus. I think she was doing a lot. Her kit seems overall a lot of burst, a lot of potential. I don't have any issue putting her in the A plus. I think she definitely will sit there for now with no issues. I think she'll be a decent pick and can't really go wrong with until I see more of the game and proven wrong otherwise. That being said, just talking about these characters again briefly. Cloak and Dagger, I think, is going to add an interesting dynamic to the game. I really don't know where I would put them yet. Black Widow, same. Even watching the gameplay now, Black Widow, I still don't know where I would want to put. Hawkeye, I still think has a lot of potential. I think these characters are going to have a lot of potential. We're going to see kind of where they land. Psylocke, Moon Knight, Wolverine. There's not enough actual gameplay there for me to really make a decision on those characters yet. But I think overall, I'm pretty confident with this list. I don't think I would change anything. I know some people are gonna look at Iron Man and be like, that's crazy to put Iron Man B. I just have Iron Man at B mainly because I feel like these other DPS just are gonna make Iron Man's life a lot harder than it needs to be. I think you're gonna struggle if you play Iron Man. I still think you're probably gonna struggle with Storm, and I might actually even put Storm at B because of that. But if I was gonna make a move, I'd probably make a move there. I'd probably put Storm down a little bit because of that. But I mean, the team ups is really what keeps keeps these a little bit higher. The team up with these guys are really strong. But I don't know. That's again kind of where it's gonna land. I wouldn't mind. Like I wouldn't. I honestly wouldn't mind putting an Iron Man up here, but I just think he's gonna struggle, man. I just think he's gonna struggle. I think he doesn't move fast enough to deal with characters like Namor, or deal with characters like Winter Soldier or Punisher. Obviously, you're gonna have the Iron Man players who just are really good at Iron Man, or excuse me, and are gonna be able to play the angles and play the line of sight and really stay out of the the pathway of these different characters that are gonna give Iron Man an issue. But again, I think as an overall picture, I think Iron Man probably is at a B tier. Team play and maybe like a higher rank competitive play, maybe Iron Man is gonna sit a little bit higher, higher than that, or like as just like a ranked pub stomper. But this is kind of where I feel comfortable putting everything. Again, biggest controversial pick for me is probably Iron Fist. Maybe Iron Fist isn't really not going to be that good in general, or maybe just not enough people are going to be good with him for him to be placed this high. But I think overall, most of the cast is in a pretty decent spot. Again, when we see actual values of everything on game release, I think that's really going to factor into kind of where all these characters get placed. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Again, I really appreciate you for watching, hanging around. We will be streaming live on Twitch on day of release. There are drops enabled, so come on by twitch.tv/. I appreciate you guys. Let me know what you're looking forward to most with Marvel Rivals. I would like to maybe do some giveaways on battle passes and stuff like that. So come on by, and we'll see what happens, what the future holds. I'm excited. I hope you guys are too. I think this game is going to be a lot of fun. It's nice to actually have another hero shooter in the mix to kind of grind, play, get a feel for, see a lot of potential in. Overall, I'm just excited, and I can't wait to play it. So, see you gamers in. Saw dudes. Till next time. Take care. Peace out.
Kool-Aid Crush.
And I've been chilling, watching it